Obliviate.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is the start of the finale, the beginning of the end, and is the first part, of course, with the book, The Deathly Hallows, split into two parts, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2, and this is definitely one of the most underrated Harry Potter films in my opinion. It was never one of my favourites, because it was the only Harry Potter film that felt like it wasn't a complete story, but over the years I've really come to really love this film, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. And I will be containing spoilers. If you've not seen Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1, click off now. But if you don't care, let's carry on. This movie is great. I really love this film. It's the first Harry Potter film not to take place at Hogwarts, and it makes for a much different feeling. And putting these three characters together, they're of course going to find the Horcruxes, and the wizarding world is in up in arms. Voldemort's building up his army, Dumbledore's dead, we don't see Hogwarts anymore, Harry and Ron and Hermione, we're just following their adventures here, and it's getting dark, and it's getting gritty, and that's what I love about this movie. Of course, David Yates comes back, who also directed the last two, Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, which were also great, but he brings something else to the table here that I think is really impressive. I think he did a good job directing those other two, but he did something really interesting here, which I liked, and it made it feel a lot more gritty, and basically stripped away the magic, and for all the better. There are still magical moments that I really love, and magical moments of character and world building, but it really strips away that to a bare bones, basically scavenger hunt to find these Horcruxes and destroy them, yet they have no clue what they're doing, and it makes this movie extremely riveting from beginning to finish. This is nail-biting like no other Harry Potter movie was before. It's so tense, and I love this film. This movie starts right off the bat with the Dursleys leaving. Hermione has just wiped her parents' memory of herself. That scene is just emotionally powerful. Imagine that. That's just really powerful stuff, and it opens this movie up so emotionally, and then just gets us straight into it. Harry's back at the Dursleys' house. He's playing with the little knights he played with at the very start of the first Harry Potter movie. Great little callbacks like that just signify that this is the ending. This is where it all concludes, and that's what I've always loved about massive, big, epic movie finales, and this is definitely the first part of that, and it's very exciting seeing where it leads to and seeing all these things. And we immediately come in, we have some fun, loads of Harrys are replicated in this very fun sequence, and then immediately after that we get an extremely tense chase throughout the streets, and it is so much fun. This movie starts off not just tense, but frightening, and also just extremely fun, and it paces itself out really well to bring all the emotion really well. But when Harry and Hermione and Ron start to go on their adventure, this movie becomes really investing. A lot of things that are set up at the start of this movie definitely are more impactful later, now thinking about it, and a lot of the things we realise from the other films are even more impactful in this film. And that's what I've always loved about the Deathly Hallows movies. They feel like they just fit everything into place so perfectly, and this is the movie where you start to really recognise that. And I think it's really interesting. And I want to talk about the characters here, because this movie definitely focuses a lot on Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They have a big heist, they have to break into the Ministry of Magic. Very fun, very tense, very creative sequences. I love the scene where they have to use the Polyjuice Potion, and they turn themselves into the other versions of the Ministry of the Magic. It's so much fun, I love it, and it's so exciting to watch, and it's so well done. And another thing I really like here is that there is intensity. This is the first time that their quest, their adventure, their mystery that they're solving has massive world impacts, and it's exciting. Also, we get to see magic used in real life, in normal places that we would go, and it makes it feel a lot more relatable. It makes it feel a lot more intense that now all this magic we've seen built up, what does that mean when it's now brought into our world, and how they have to try and hide it and stuff. But what it does for these three characters, they're having arguments, they're trying to work out things. Harry and Hermione's relationship is growing a little bit more in terms of the friendship side, and it's just really beautiful and heartwarming. And there's perfect moments within this film that perfectly break the tension, and then character moments that rise the tension back up. They do a lot with Ron's character. He's scared that his family are going to die anytime soon. He has this radio around with him, and there's tension between him and Harry. Ron doesn't really know what he's signing up for, and they've been looking for these things for months. We don't know how long they've been looking them for, but it's really intense, and great character drama between this trio that were just a unbinding friendship, and now it's sort of getting ripped apart, and these dark magic that's consuming them, making them angry and say things they wouldn't usually say. It's really, really intense and great character stuff. But again, there's moments, really funny, maybe comedic moments, or just really heartwarming scenes that break the tension perfectly. One of my favourite scenes in the entire series is the scene where Ron leaves and Harry and Hermione are just left and they dance to a song that's on the radio. It's such a lovely moment of bonding friendship and it gives me chills. But wow, it's such a beautiful scene. Really, really beautiful. That just small minute that they're dancing for just encapsulates these characters' bonds so perfectly. And then Ron, of course, comes back in sort of a convenient way. And, it's exciting. These three are back together again. And then we get this entire finale, which taking place at Malfoy Manor. And it's really, really intense. The sixth movie ended us with Snape, of course, being the Half-Blood Prince and his allegiance to Voldemort and his army. And we get to see that Snape's a bit on edge here. He's maybe doing this for a certain reason. Of course, we learn that in the next movie, but it's interesting seeing how that plays into, because Voldemort's torturing one of the teachers, and Snape's sort of sat there going, eh. It's a very interesting sequence, and Voldemort, while not in this movie very much, is intimidating. Harry has a lot of visions of him, intimidating Grindelwald and Ollivander, the wand guy, and it's intimidating, I guess. And of course, the main thing about this movie, what the title, of course, The Deathly Hallows, we go to Luna Lovegood's home, and her father talks us through the story of the Deathly Hallows in this wonderful, wonderful animation sequence, which is beautiful. It's one of my favourite moments in the entire series, and it's so engrossing, it's so mesmerising, this entire Deathly Hallows scene. Of these three objects. It adds so much depth to this world, and I feel like it adds another layer of maybe a hint showing what happens in the past and how that may maybe affect this future that our characters are walking into and this battle that's emerging. And I will talk about the ending in a minute, because the ending of this film is very, very emotional. But I would like to talk about the scene where Harry goes to Godric's Hollow, the place where he was born. We learn a bit more about what maybe happened that night. And it's interesting, Harry goes to his grave in this really heartwarming sequence, and then this terrifying scene with the snake. The tension builds and builds and builds, and then we get to this really exciting forest chase sequence, which is directed almost like shaky cam style, and it's really interesting. I love the handheld style of this chase. It makes you really feel like you're there with the characters, running alongside with them, and you can really feel the intensity. And that's what I love about the Harry Potter films, and this one especially. It's so immersive. It slows down so much. Usually when you have a two-parter movie finale, you usually have one of the films which is very slow-paced, and one of the films are very fast-paced. Deathly Hallows Part 2 is a very fast-paced movie. This movie is a very slow burn. It really develops and takes its time to showcase everything that needs to be done so it can set up the finale, emotionally prepares you for the finale. And of course the ending where Dobby dies it's a good place to end the movie. Of course, Dumbledore's grave, where then Voldemort goes to retrieve the Elder Wand. There's interesting setup for the next film, and it definitely cuts in a way that I feel works well as its own film, but again works best sending into the next one. This is the first time I actually watched both films back to back. I've never done that before, and it was a great experience because I really got to experience the entire big finale as one big 4-hour thing, and it was very, very exciting. But I love the slow pace of this movie. I really do. I love the small character moments. They're my favourite parts. But there's a lot of epic stuff in here as well. The musical score by Alexandre Despacito, I think. Brilliant. Really good score. Not one of my favourite Harry Potter scores. Of course, it doesn't capture the magic of Williams, but he uses quite a lot of Williams motifs. And there's some great epic music that's used. I think it's really, really good. The direction's great. I think David Yates does a better job directing this than he did with the last two. I love Deathly Hallows Part 1. It has a few pacing issues, a few moments where it does dip in the pace, and there's a few quite big plot conveniences, like I said, when Ron just comes back. There's a few things in this movie that drag for me just a little bit, but they're really, really small issues, and as I said, it doesn't really feel like one complete mystery or film, but it's not supposed to. It's a Part 1, so I don't know why that issue would really matter. But this is definitely, I would say, one of my favourite Harry Potter movies, just because of the emotional weight that this movie carries, and that preparedness it does, preparing you for this big epic conclusion. And as I said, the character moments. I'm gonna give Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 an A. I'm also gonna give this movie a 9.4 out of 10. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think of Deathly Hallows Part 1 down below. Make sure to check out my Letterboxd for far more reviews, and of course, thanks for watching, and goodbye.